And we are live, but unfortunately, I just saw the couple of viewers that were waiting just dropped off. They got tired of waiting on us. Sorry, guys, but hey, it's uh, it's that time again, right? What day is it, Cameron?
It's WTF CNN.
That's right. So WTF CNN Wednesday. Um, well, as I hope you saw in the thumbnail there, it's the back to school edition. WTF CNN back to school edition. Okay, you know what? Let's jump right into this article. Second grader tests positive for coronavirus after attending the first day of school in Georgia. This is textbook fake news. Now, understand what I am saying is not that a second grader did not test positive for coronavirus. I'm sure he did.
Yup,
I'm
yup.
certain that they found a second grader who tested positive for coronavirus after attending the first day of school in Georgia.
Well, this is what they do, man. This is the best way to lie. You use facts, and you just put a little polish on them, and kind of divert the narrative.
So, what this headline wants you to understand, wants you to believe, is that a second grader caught coronavirus on the first day of school in Georgia. Okay, they went back to school on Monday. Monday. Today is Wednesday. Even if the kid caught the coronavirus at school on Monday, he wouldn't test positive today because, or at least as we're led to believe, there's a 2 week incubation period, right? And we're pretty sure about this 2 week incubation period because we just saw a big spike in coronavirus cases in, oh, I don't know, all of the cities that had mass rioting that occurred, oh, I don't know, almost exactly 2 weeks to the minute after the rioting. Huh. So what they want you to take away from this headline, and if it's not clear, you'll see as we read the article, they keep doing this funny thing with the language where they don't quite say what they're actually saying in order in order to serve the hope that you will make certain assumptions. They want you to take from second grader tests positive for coronavirus after attending first day of school. They want you to take that and say, oh my God, a kid went to school and got coronavirus. They're all going to die. Jesus Christ. No, 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 no. Okay? CDC statistics, 188 deaths among people aged 24 and younger. 0.15% of the total deaths. The second grader, so we're talking what? Okay, there you go. In the 5 to
Seven.
14 year category, in the 5 to 14-year-old category for the second grader, there have been 14 deaths total nationwide in that age group. And you can bet that almost all of, if not all of them, involved comorbidities like some
Asthma.
sort of respiratory disease, yeah, asthma, maybe even childhood sleep apnea, childhood diabetes, something like that. But 14 children are all but immune to this disease by the numbers. Oh, and that's not to say that the disease shouldn't be taken seriously, but Jesus Christ, stop lying about it.
Well, that's part of the problem that we have now. I I think part of the mess that we're in now and why this has become, like everybody says, masks shouldn't be a political issue. You're exactly correct. Masks shouldn't be a political issue. But Dr. Fauci lied about the fucking masks. I mean, as soon as that happened, well, what? What did you think people weren't going to politicize it? Did you think people weren't going to question why government officials are giving us contradictory information? Because if you follow the whole coronavirus timeline, oh, it's no big deal. It is a big deal. It's no big deal. Oh, you're racist if you want to travel ban to China, and human to human transmission, yes. Human to human transmission, no. Human to human transmission, yes. And it lives on surfaces forever. Actually, it dies really quickly on surfaces. Sunlight doesn't make a difference. Sunlight does make a difference. UV light doesn't make a difference. UV light does make a difference. So yeah. And this is just another, at this point, the well has been poisoned to such an extent to where I don't know that I believe anything about the coronavirus aside from it's real, it came from China, and it does occasionally kill people.
Yeah, that's yes, and it does occasionally kill people.
But I mean,
Oh,
the flu kills people, you know? You you can get like a really bad case of equaly, and die of that. Just there is no disease that doesn't potentially become lethal in certain circumstances. Like, I mean, well, the flu. There's a reason why we don't want old people getting the flu. And look, and here's the thing. I'm actually going full blown tinfoil hat on this. Here's why this school issue is such a big deal. It's twofold. One, for better or worse, most American families have to have the kids go to school. They're simply not in a position to manage their finances without the state mandated babysitter actually babysitting. And look, it's not our fault that all these laws got passed that say it's illegal to not educate your children. So they have to go to school for 90% of functioning American households. So there's that. There's the economic damage that happens if the kids don't go to school. And that's twofold economic damage. Food, all that material that doesn't get bought and consumed, oh, that's not good for your supply chains. But I
well,
actually
you,
think it's,
you you lose. Yeah, you're losing wages if you're losing wages if you have to stay home and educate the children yourself. Um, Potentially, we live in the post radical feminism destroyed economy, which sought to sought to make labor cheap by doubling the labor supply without altering the labor demand, which didn't end up working out that way anyway because oh hey, you doubled the labor supply, and now demand rises to meet that supply. Um, so what you have is artificially depressed labor valuations in a market economy where now, because of those exact conditions, a large number of American families feel that they must be two income households. When, of course, the fact of the matter there is, oh, I lost you. You got back in. But a large number of American families feel that they need to be two income households. And quite frankly, the facts of the matter are if you're having to pay for childcare, you're if you're not bringing in $250,000 a year between the two spouses, the cost of childcare is prohibitive to the employment of one spouse. If if it costs you the entire wages of one spouse to work while sending children to childcare, then why?
Well, that's why the school. I mean, that's why the schools are so important. It is
Exactly.
what it is. And then there's a second. There's a second piece to it. Um, Schools in many counties and districts across the country, schools are where you go to vote. And if a bunch of little booger hooks can make the schools work, I mean, sure, some of them will have coronavirus cases, no doubt. But if all these little, I mean, because y'all children are filthy. They would never bathe unless you forced them to. Let me tell you. If you can
Are
make
you
it work,
kidding? I mean, my kids sometimes they're as bad as freaking shiny new privates in basic. Every now and then you got one you just got to drag out in the yard with a scrub brush and a hose and something that can project soap over a distance. Which, by the way, is not what we mean when we say soap party. Wow, Cameron, your feed is coming in
anyhow.
really bad. Okay, there you go. I think you just had a bad
Yeah,
handshake
I
with a
do.
cell
I
tower
was
there.
going to, but no, if we can make it work with the kids, then there is absolutely no reason not to have in person voting. And I don't care how conspiracy theory crazy this sounds. It is what I believe. If we have in person voting, Donald Trump probably wins. If we have nationwide mass mail in voting, Joe Biden probably wins. Like, I mean, look at that district up in New York, man. What's it been like 7 weeks now? And they still can't figure out who won that congressional race?
You know
Now,
what? There is another scenario. We do the mail in ballots, and then Trump's just president for 4 more years while we wait for the counts to come back.
and look, I'll even take it full blown um, because, as I understand constitutional law, his term as president expires in January. If he were to win re-election, his original term still expires. It is his second term that that happens. It's not 8 years of the same presidency. It's two 4-year blocks. And that's important because, I mean, what if like some real shenanigans go on? What if they just keep counting and counting and counting and let his term expire? What then? Is the office of the president vacant?
Maybe it just maybe he has to step down from office, and Pence just steps up as the vice president, whose job it would naturally be to fill that, whose
Yeah,
job it would naturally be to fill that vacancy.
except for the fact that his term would also be over.
So does that make Nancy the president?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. The Marxists are desperate for a constitutional crisis. They understand that they have a real pivot point here. They've got everybody fever pitch, angry, despondent. This is the time for the Cultural Revolution. There was no history before today. Well, that's sort of a constitutional crisis. I mean, that could be a hell of a flashpoint.
Yeah.
And
Um,
the president talks of mass voter fraud. Maybe mass voter fraud, but let's say let's say a guy like me or a guy like you were to hatch a plan to steal an election. We wouldn't do mass fraud. We would carefully identify certain districts like Broward County, Florida, just as an example.
oh, you mean where
And
Cheetle was in charge?
yes, that one. No, we'd identify certain districts, and we'd look for ones that had razor thin margins, but uh, have the potential to give a lot of electoral votes one way or another. And then, boom, we just focus our efforts on those small areas. You know, there's a certain math that says Donald Trump actually won the presidency by about 50,000 votes last year because his margins in places like Pennsylvania were so thin.
Cheeto juice,
Well,
Cheeto juice, Cheeto juice.
all you got to do is flip it back. So anyhow, long story short, like don't let them scare you from the school. Don't. And can I just the irony? It's delicious. All the stuff about the teachers and the education system, and it's just so important that we send the kids to school. Oh my God, you know, and if your kid misses too much school, a special cop named a truancy officer is going to come ask you some questions. And they actually have to have their little Marxist indoctrination centers closed in order to enact their Marxist plan. I mean, oh, the left is so self-defeating. It really is.
Um, yeah, and
Yes.
I was hoping I could find a piece of statistics that I wanted to bring up since we switched over to that side, because I have a generally very, very low opinion of teachers in this country. Um, when when I was coming up through the public school system, I had maybe four teachers that were really intelligent, valuable teachers. John Robinson, Michelle Thorne, Mr. Duke, whose first name I can't remember, and damn, there was a graphic arts teacher that I had that he was a sharp cookie. I worked for him one summer on a farm baling hay, and I can't remember his damn name. Aggravates me, but he was a great guy. Uh, and I honestly, I don't even know if I'd call him a great teacher. He was a great guy in a classroom where it was really mostly just hands-on experiential learning. Uh, he knew his stuff, but uh, anyway, a very limited number of teachers that had actual value when I was coming up through the schools. Um, and then the when I went to Clayton State University, again, I can name on one hand the teachers that had actual merit as human beings. Like most of them weren't just the bad ones weren't just bad teachers; they were bad people. Now,
Yeah, they were
among
Marxist.
yeah, exactly, among teachers, and frankly, I had a couple of really good professors who were willing to engage in the debate in legitimate conversation, legitimate debate that were also Marxists. Um, I
Wow. You had unicorns.
oh yeah, oh yeah, and but even among those unicorns, I had one that I don't know how he and I had gotten there. We had gotten onto the topic of Trump Trump banning transgenders from entering the military, and I think I've been pretty clear on my position on that. There's no room in the United States military for a transgender, um, because either you don't have a condition, in which case you're just play acting, or you do have a medical condition, and we forbid people entry to the military on medical conditions routinely because it makes you unfit for duty. If if you have a medical condition that requires additional treatment, you're not eligible for service. You don't get to come into the army needing to be repaired. That's not what we need in the military. Now, if the army breaks you, Like if the army gets your balls blown off and you decide, well, maybe I should start wearing dresses and just embrace it, that's a very different argument. But if you just show up one day and say, hi, I'd like to be a 35 Juliet and a woman. Oh, well, sorry, sweetheart. You're going to have to go figure that shit out yourself. Now, maybe you throw an exception for, okay, look, I was born a man, I transitioned to a woman, I've been living as a woman, I have had the medical procedures, I do not require additional medical services, I am who I am now. Maybe that's a little different. But if you come in and your expectation is you're going to join the military, go to basic combat training, and then the taxpayer's going to pay for your gender reassignment, your counseling, your drugs, all of that. No. Um, wow, that went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I was about to
Anyway,
say, buddy, the professor.
anyway, I asked him the question, okay, is transgenderism a mental disorder or a physical deformity? Because unless it's not a medical issue, it is one of those two things. It's either a mental health issue or it's a physical medical issue. And if it's not one of those two things, then it's just a fantasy. And we treat people who have life affecting fantasies who cannot rationally distinguish those fantasies from reality a very certain way within, oh, that's right, that's a separate mental health issue. So there is an issue there. I don't know what the issue is, but if you can't tell me what the issue is, I can't have any input on how to treat it. And I do mean treat it, how to, I mean, to treat it generally, how to deal with it in the greater context of a social conundrum, or how to treat it. Do you give them drugs? Do you give them therapy? Do you cut on them? Are we talking surgery? Are we talking pharmacology? Are we talking counseling? I don't know. And if you can't answer that question, then how can you expect the government to take responsibility for this person? And he said, "Wow." He actually looked at me and said, "I don't know if you and I can ever have a conversation again." And I think that was actually the last time I ever spoke to him. Um, those are your
Yep,
teachers.
that's how you know when you've won an argument with a leftist, when they block you on Facebook.
The teachers that you have in the public schools, especially, by a wide margin, they're very young. They have graduated a high school, gone directly from a high school to a college where, by a wide margin, they have studied education. Right? They've studied pedagogy, the the skill of teaching, but they haven't studied a subject matter, a specialization. And then they go
Hey,
back and they're your math teachers, your social studies teachers, your history teachers, et cetera, et cetera. Um,
hey, real quick. I've only ever seen that word written. It's pronounced pedagogy.
yes.
Oh, good to know. That's sort of like when I realized her. That's sort of like when I realized her name was Hermione instead of Hermione.
When I read that book originally, I thought it was Hermione, which it's not even quite spelled that way. I had the I and the O transposed, but it just Hermione seemed right. But yeah, Hermione.
Yeah, I always thought that word was pedagogy.
Yeah, pedagogy just sounds like, wow. That sounds like Hollywood
Sounds
ball
like
gags.
sounds like something that would get our channel bounced off YouTube.
So your teachers. Oh, good morning, Danny. So Danny's with us. So yeah, the teachers we have now,
Hey,
like I was saying, they
Danny.
they come out of high school, they go straight to college, and then they go straight back to teaching in a school system. And so what you have is you have children who are lying to children about not being children. They've moved up through academia to be recycled back into academia without ever leaving the very safe halls of academia. No wonder there's this bizarre obsession with safe spaces. They don't understand the experience and the profit of leaving the safe space to go kill the mammoth. You have to leave the cave if you want to eat the mammoth. And if you don't leave the cave and go eat the mammoth, you will starve and die in the dark.
You know, I had a terrible experience with one of my children. One of one of my boys is the wild child, and I am here to tell you that if you've never actually had a wild child, you don't understand what it's like. You just don't. And he happens to be extremely brilliant on top of it. And some time ago, I won't give the specifics for obvious reasons, but he had a teacher fresh out of college, and she was completely unequipped to deal with him. Um,
Oh God, is
I
this the
mean,
one that I know about?
yes, this is the one you know about. And it was awful. It really was. And look, I understand that this son of mine can be extremely challenging to deal with because he just kind of does his own thing and he's smart enough. Like you could tell him, you know, don't do that. And he can figure out how to follow your instructions, but still do the thing he wants to do anyway. You know? So yeah, these are your teachers. And Danny, we know you're a teacher, but you're, for better or worse, you're of a certain age, and once you go below somewhere around 35, 40 years old, the difference in mindset and people in general is shocking. I mean, shocking. And part of that mindset is that teachers are this special class and we should bow down to them. And no, piss off. Okay? I get it. I get it. They they take care of your children every day. I get it. But it's a job. It's a
Is that
job
what you
like
call it?
every other.
I'm glad
Well,
you said that. They take care of your children every day. Okay, so there are many, many reasons that we homeschool our children and do not tolerate their abuse at the hands of public denizens. Uh, on her first day of pre-K, we took my daughter to the school and dropped her off in the morning. And when we went to pick her up that evening or that afternoon, they didn't know where she was and told us that we just hadn't dropped her off that morning.
no, no.
It's more likely you think in your mind. Now, this is several years ago. Sergeant Lowry still looked like Sergeant Lowry. I still had a maybe a little trim goatee and a murder board frickin' military haircut. And so your theory here is that I put my child somewhere else and forgot about it. They told me she hadn't been there all day. No, what had happened was somehow she had wandered into a different classroom, and the teacher who was supposed to be doing attendance just didn't bother to mark that she wasn't there. Didn't bother to didn't call us, didn't nothing. Right? Hey, your kid's not here. Um Lost her. Okay, then on her first day of kindergarten, the bus was 4 hours late bringing her home at the end of the day. The bus was an hour late picking her up that morning, but when the bus is an hour late to pick her up in the morning, I still have positive accountability on my kid. The bus was 4 hours late that afternoon, and please believe, the second it was 5 minutes late, I was on the phone with the administration. Hey, where's my child? Well, sir, we need you to call him. No, no, my child is missing, and you need to understand that you are in mortal peril. because my child is missing. And then they
Don't think I
couldn't
won't burn your city down.
they couldn't tell. Yeah, I've seen me do it. Uh and then they couldn't tell me which bus she was on. And
You know what's
then
amazing to
and
me? Go
then
ahead.
later that same year, when she was shoved down on the playground and sexually assaulted by a little black boy who whipped out his little pecker and tried to pee on her in front of a bunch of people. He was never punished. He went right back to school. He continues to attend that school to my knowledge to this day. I know that he was never expelled. We pulled her out then and began homeschooling her. We homeschooled her at that point for 1 year and returned, and she asked to go back to school. She said she missed her friends and wanted to go back to school. And so we let her go back to school after 1 year of homeschooling. And on day one, I was very careful to go and speak to the principal and the administration and say, look, this thing occurred. I want to be certain that they don't end up in the same classroom together. Oh, yeah, no problem, Mr. Lauer. We'll take care of that. And we show up for the open house. He's not just in the same classroom, they sat her next to him. And when I went to talk to the principal about it, they said, "Well, we don't have any record of that happening." I'm sorry, you don't keep a behavioral or disciplinary record. What happened to all those times that they told me shit was going to go on my permanent record? You don't keep a disciplinary or behavioral record on your sexual deviance. You don't keep a record of this kid slings his dick at people on the playground. So no, I will no longer I will no longer risk the safety of my children to the child abuse that is the public education system. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
You know what always amazes me about the pre-K story is that it never occurred to them to put two and two together. Like, parents are going to show up and try and pick up their kids, and uh, they're going to do that in error. you like, I'm here for my child. Well,
Oh yeah,
that's
and
not.
I will never forget that conversation. I said, "You need to explain yourself to me." And she said, "I don't have to explain myself to anybody." I said, "No, no. Let me rephrase that. I didn't lose my fucking kid."
I know where I saw her last. I'm certain
I
of it.
might I might get a little excited on this topic.
Yes, and these are the little centers of abuse and indoctrination that the vast majority of us must send our children to, or we cannot function economically, and and it's all tied into the voting and everything else. Like, that's
Yeah, you've got
just a.
you've got the mass indoctrination, the clear incompetence, the lack of specialization. At least when I was a kid, the teachers had the common courtesy to just waste my time. They were just useless. They weren't an actual threat to public health, safety, and national security.
But that headline in particular, one of the reasons why Georgia was singled out, and it's because
Yes,
of Brian Kemp.
because Brian Kemp has a good old boy country accent and is white.
And don't be surprised when all this stuff spikes in Florida as well, because Florida's another state that tried to open up early. And please believe, like, there's all the stuff about maybe Georgia's going to turn blue. Well, Georgia turns blue if we do the massive mail-in thing, and we can't go vote in person. Florida has flipped back and forth from red to blue pretty consistently for the past several presidential elections. Um, and I, I'm telling you, man, it's tinfoil hat. We got to be terrified to let our children experience the world. That's the No, I'll just trade a little bit of freedom for security.
Yeah, because now you deserve stuff. Um, and yeah, remember we're in Georgia where Stacey Abrams is still just going on about how she got cheated out of the election. Stacey
Yeah.
Abrams has been investigated over voter fraud. What is it, 3 or 4 times? I mean, the woman is an irrepentant elections criminal.
Look, man, she's only corrupt by that much.
Yeah. So, oh, we didn't even read the rest of the damn article. But honestly, the key takeaway was on the article was they want you to believe that Georgians went to school and immediately got COVID. That's not that's not possible. There's if there's a 2 week freaking uh opposite indoctrination incubation period, then you don't go to school and test positive that day. Um, a Georgia second grader tested positive for COVID after attending the first day of school. The school district told CNN. See, and I mean, even there, they're doing it again. And the Cherokee County School District began in-person classes on Monday. By Tuesday, a classroom was temporarily closed for deep cleaning, and the teacher and 20 other students had been asked to quarantine for 2 weeks after the second grader tested positive. Now, watch this. Watch what they do here. While health experts are still investigating how children spread the virus, blah, 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 Dr. Fauci has emphasized that schools need to include safety in their reopening plans. Jesus, you got to mute yourself, Cameron. You're making a hell of a noise.
Real? Oh, that was a truck going by. Sorry.
Oh, it was terrible. No, no, no. It was something it was some crackly, plasticky thing you were sticking with. Anyway, so apparently Dr. Fauci has emphasized that schools need to include safety in their reopening plans. Um, what was
Isn't
this? A classroom was temporarily closed for deep cleaning, and the teacher and 20 other students have been asked to quarantine for 2 weeks. That's okay.
it sounds
In
like a safety plan?
in in Fauci's defense, I suspect that he did not make a statement about including safety in the reopening plans immediately following or with direct reference to this. This is somewhere where they've cherry picked a quote to make a fallacious appeal to authority, to pretend like you guys aren't listening to the authorities. But okay, a pandemic is similar to war in one aspect. You'll hear soldiers and you'll hear people generally often say safety first. Bullshit. Mission first. You can't safety first everything. If you safety first everything, people die. Mission first. And really it's coffee first, mission second. Safety's like fourth or fifth. But let's be real serious. Safety first. It that doesn't make the donuts, kids. Um Cherokee County recommends but does not require that children wear masks because, of course, we need an opportunity to attack the white man. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp has fought mayors' attempts to mandate mask use. There are a bunch of problems with mandating mask use. Apart from the glaring, it's unlawful, it's unconstitutional for a mayor to issue an affirmatively active edict. You cannot You cannot positively compel people by force to take desirable actions. If we could, why don't we just mandate that everybody get a damn job? But
Buy a gun?
because that would fix a lot of problems, wouldn't it? Uh, but apart from the glaring legal issues, not to mention the violations of the Americans with Disability Act and HIPAA laws, the mask mandates are overreaching generally as well. We see these mask mandates, and they're things like you must wear. Right now in LA, for example, the rule in LA is you must wear a mask if you leave your home. And by the letter of the law, that means if you walk outside to go to your mailbox. What if I walk outside, I get in my pickup truck, and I drive to my lake house, and then I get in the pontoon boat and go out fishing and spend 72 hours without ever seeing another human being? Okay, on the one hand, there is the argument that if I never see another human being, nobody gets to enforce the mask mandate. But just because nobody catches you murdering somebody doesn't mean you didn't do it. The law is still saying that under those exact circumstances as described, I have to wear a mask or be in violation. That's ludicrous. I can't I can't go out and jog in my neighborhood, go for a walk, play around a golf, go out and shoot some pictures. Hell, go for a drive. Right? Now, I don't think the mask mandates in Georgia have been quite that unhingedly ludicrous, but not that crazy is like saying that the Unabomber wasn't exactly Charles Manson.
Yeah, I mean, but long story short, this is just another it's another brick in the wall. And yeah, that was a pun on many levels.
Wow. Well, at least nobody came to weld us into our basements,
How? That's because we don't live in China.
and we own guns.
Well, funny, the left, they want both of those things to actually happen, which,
Yes.
just a little scary, just a pinch.
Yeah, just a little bit, little bit. All right. Well, I
Yeah,
think that's all I've got this morning.
yeah,
So
WTF, CNN. Good Lord.
yeah,
It's still funny to me though, watching the left twist itself into knots. They spent decades conditioning our society to think school is just one of the most important things that ever happens in anybody's life ever. And now, in order to enact their master plan, they actually have to keep the kids out of school. It's
yeah. I
just,
mean, I wish I could go back and just learn how to read. Let's see. I first read Edith Hamilton's. I first read Edith Hamilton's anthology of classical Greek mythology when I was about 7. So, uh, yeah. So at 7 years old, I was adequately literate. I could have lived the rest of my life without a public school and been dramatically better off. So, dear public school, I want my 10 years back. And that's about all I've got this morning, so I'm going to go ahead and call it. Y'all be safe out there. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Oh, and this morning I figured out why the stream appeared to go on for like 8 hours yesterday. So I fixed that. It should actually only be a 30-minute video. Well, 45 minutes.
45.
Yeah, so had a lot of bugs yesterday when the system swapped over on us. I think I got them figured out. Love you. Like, share, and subscribe.